On this edition of the program, Trump's executive order on homelessness and why I think it means a little bit more than people are giving it credit for. Dan Turrentine joins the show to talk about the state of the Democratic Party and a little bit of why people are so fake in the media world when they're talking politics. Plus, we got some money news out of North Carolina. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for July 30th, 2025. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you in Austin, Texas. We're going to be joined by a great guest on this show. His name is Dan Turrentine. If you've not heard of him before, well, congratulations. This is going to be your first introduction to somebody that I think is a great mind if you care about the state of the modern Democratic Party. He has raised money for Hillary Clinton. He was the chief of staff for Jared Polis before he went back to Colorado. And now he is on the internet damn near every day on Two Ways the Morning Meeting show with Mark Halperin and Sean Spicer. And for my money, he gives an unflinching look at politics in general, certainly from a Democratic partisan lens, but he is somebody that wants Democrats to win so much that he'll actually say what the problems are. And he'll point out things that are not going great, which is all we've ever wanted in life. So you're going to really, really like it. That's going to come up later. We're also going to get to talking about Roy Cooper raising a bunch of money in North Carolina. We're going to talk about a big EPA ruling that, is, I think, going to be pretty seismic, not only in a deregulatory perspective, but quite possibly going down the road, reshape the idea of environmentalism in America. And more Epstein. You're going to get more Epstein. More Epstein than you can ever handle. This is just a gluttony of Epstein. Too much Epstein. More Epstein news. Donald Trump talking about why they stopped being friendly. Before we get to that, though, we are going to stay on Donald Trump, because the 47th president of the United States of America signed an executive order titled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets, aiming to reframe the federal response to homelessness toward public safety and mandatory treatment rather than housing-based approaches. The order directs federal agencies to prioritize funding for states and cities enforcing ban on urban camping, loitering, and open drug use, as well as supporting civil commitment, that is, the involuntary hospitalizations of people living on the streets with serious mental health illness and substance abuse disorder. This marks a shift away from housing-first strategies, effectively defunding harm reduction programs and requiring compliance with treatment before receiving federal assistance. It has been attacked by many organizations, and I don't know what it's going to do. I don't know if it's going to have a tremendous effect on the various largely blue cities that are going to reflexively do the opposite of whatever Donald Trump wants. But I think it's a bigger deal than the coverage that it's got. And I'm going to start off here by saying that I'm probably more aware of this than the average person. Mostly because I have been around 3 cities that have experienced visible homelessness on a level that has quite frankly reshaped the concept of empathy for me. Because when you see so many destitute people out on the streets, you have to start drawing lines. You have to start looking at human beings and saying, well, they're not somebody that I need to run out of my car right now and help, because either the problem's too big, they look dangerous, or it wouldn't help anybody. And those 3 cities are Oakland, San Francisco, and now Austin. All of them have their own unique homelessness programs or problems. None, in my opinion, worse than San Francisco. San Francisco's homelessness problem is shocking. It is quite frankly jaw-dropping. It is the number one thing that many people talk about when they visit the city by the bay. And that's odd considering the stunning architecture, weather, and culture that usually defines San Francisco. Now, I'm not here to tell you that there is an easy solution to homelessness writ large. Very smart people, and anything that I've read on this seems to state that there is about a 50% grouping of the larger homelessness body populace that are simply people who have fallen behind. They've had a bad run of things financially. Maybe they've made some bad decisions themselves, but they don't have the safety net. They don't have the family. And so they're just kind of, out on the streets. But then there's that other 50%. There's another 50% that quite honestly does not want to reintegrate into society. And there is some portion of that are either mentally ill or addicted to drugs. The drug and alcohol addiction component of this is very, very, very front of mind for me, especially coming from the Bay Area, where there's very clearly a huge population that is in San Francisco, sometimes solely because of cheap, sometimes even free drugs. An addiction that continues to spiral from one drug to the next and oftentimes leads to death, overdoses on a scale that I don't think we even really fully reckon with in that city specifically. So before we get to whether or not these are good solutions, let's talk about it as a politically viable issue. The National Alliance to End Homelessness, in consultation with Morning Consult, this was run between April and May 2025, said 50% of U.S. adults reported an increase in homelessness in their communities over the past year. Half of America. You'd imagine that's the half of America that lives in cities. The National Alliance to End Homelessness, also with Morning Consult, this was September of last year, said 45% have noticed increased homelessness. And a self-financial survey from the middle of this year said 85% say homelessness is an issue in their area, and 58% say it's gotten worse in the last year. Now, where things wind up getting a little bit more divided is when you poll for how to fix it. There is an overwhelming majority of people that suggest that you should build more houses. If there was more housing availability, then there would be less people living on the streets. And there's no doubt that part of this is related to the fact that housing in cities has gotten more expensive. But there's also just an urban blight argument, because living in cities in general is more expensive than it used to be. You sacrifice a lot to be in a place that is bustling, full of restaurants and culture. So to have a portion of it that also shares an element of the ugliest elements of society, even if it's just our lack of compassion to our fellow man, is not great. Combine that with public parks and trails, urban woodland that otherwise would be a boon to people that want an opportunity to stretch their legs, and in our modern world has essentially been colonized by those who do not have homes. When I first moved to Austin, Texas, and I covered this at the time, there was a referendum, a citywide referendum. A few years before, there had been the rescission of what was called the camping ban. The camping ban was a ban on urban camping, essentially saying that you could not put a tent up on a sidewalk and stay there. This was rescinded by the city council because of a very compelling story where an unhoused couple was staying in a stormage drain because they couldn't stay on the street. There was a sudden storm and the woman died. So would have been better if they were topside. Well, what happened in the intermediate was there was a lot more homelessness out on the street. And then the lockdown happened, and there was even more. The police had limited recourse on what to do because, after all, it was legal. And so, when I first moved here in 2021, there was a referendum. Should the camping ban be put in place? Travis County in Austin is very blue. It is, to my knowledge, the bluest county in Texas. And they voted to put it back in. It was discordant. I remember some people at the time saying like, well, I'm not going to vote, but I hope it passes. And partly it was, again, because there's a line between compassion and what you expect of an average city-dwelling environment. The problem with a housing first philosophy in my mind is that unless you are surging things to that cause, then it's going to take a long time. And in reality, I think that there is a portion of society that likes blighted homelessness in city streets because they hope it will be accelerationist to the idea that this is a problem of capitalism that needs to be corrected through radical means. I say all this to say that I think even in a blue county, them voting to reinstate the camping ban indicates to me that A, people care about this, and B, regardless of their political affiliation, they would like their cities to get better and cleaner. And I don't know if they really care about how it happens. In fact, I might offer the argument that for many city dwellers who are of the liberal persuasion, of which there are many, cleaner streets and another reason to complain about Trump might be the win-win they're looking for. I don't know what this is going to be in terms of a political issue, but it would not shock me if it becomes a larger one on both sides, against involuntary commitment and for cleaner streets. But I think it was a smart move for Trump to issue the executive order, because if nobody is going to take a bold stance on it, then from his perspective, why not? All right, we got the update and then Dan Turrentine.
Politics,
This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That is where you get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Come on down, friends. The water's fine. The Trump administration has proposed repealing the endangerment finding. Kind of sounds like a bad Matt Damon movie from 2005. But in reality, it's the legal basis for most of the Environmental Protection Agency's climate regulations. The move, which would eliminate most climate regulations, faces fierce legal challenges. The finding, which was issued in 2009, laid out a comprehensive case for how human emissions of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases threaten human health and welfare. That finding serves as the legal basis for rules including limits on power plants and vehicle emissions. By undoing it, agency administrator Lee Zeldin said that they would take out the holy grail of the climate change religion. So the administration is being kind of forthright with this. They rolled out this decision this morning as I record this on Tuesday on the Ruthless Variety program with Lee Zeldin on to explain and talk about it. But they view this as the way that they described it was that it was the largest deregulatory effort in American history. Quite simply because of how many rules are tied to this finding. And if the EPA says that it doesn't exist, then that means none of these rules are enforceable. They are either going to be ignored or sued, and that will be that. I can only imagine what this is going to do. I mean, like, we're going to hear a lot about it because this is also tied to a lot of money into various different NGOs. I kind of think this is a big deal. Like, honestly, like the two things that we talked about so far in this episode, the homelessness executive order and this, I think are probably bigger deals than whatever we're going to get out of this Epstein squeeze, right? But it's harder to talk about, but I do think that it's important. I got to look this up, but one of the things that was Obama era. Well, hold on, wait. Let me look this up. Hey, I have a question for you about the Obama era endangerment finding.
Sure, I'm happy to help. Are you referring to the endangerment finding by the EPA that was issued during the Obama administration about greenhouse gases?
Yes. I'm talking about that one. So there was another Obama era ruling about the size of vehicles when it came to gas emissions that has counterintuitively led to trucks getting bigger because that way they are able to keep their same gas emissions, but they're just physically larger vehicles. Would the endangerment finding being invalidated by the Trump administration, which just happened today, counterintuitively lead to smaller trucks being produced?
That's an interesting question. So the original endangerment finding under the Obama administration basically allowed the EPA to regulate greenhouse gases, and that included setting stricter fuel economy standards for vehicles. Those standards definitely pushed manufacturers to make more fuel-efficient vehicles. And in some cases, that did lead to this trend of making bigger trucks that still met the fuel efficiency standards. Now, if that finding is invalidated, it could mean a rollback of those regulations and possibly less pressure on manufacturers to meet those efficiency targets. That could, in theory, lead to changes in how they design their vehicles. It's definitely
oh my God. This is the funniest thing ever. the repealing of the endangerment finding could lead to smaller trucks. That's, oh my God, mind blowing. Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina, has raised $3.4 million. I think he is the current governor, right? Anyway, he has raised $3.4 million in his first 24 hours of his Senate campaign, setting a fundraising record. He is likely to face Republican National Committee Chair Michael Whatley in the upcoming Senate race. The fundraising haul, shared first with Politico, includes more than $2.6 million raised directly to Cooper's campaign account, with 95% of those donations totaling 100 or less, according to his team. The former governor raised another $900,000 into joint fundraising committees with the party, which allows for bigger contributions. Obviously, it's going to be a hot one. You already have digital ads up for Cooper and the supporters of Michael Whatley, who is almost assuredly going to be the Republican nominee in that state. You have Cook Political reports coming out with that race as a toss-up right now. I would put it as a toss-up. I got into a little fracas on X over the last 72 hours because I said, I kind of think that Whatley's never been a candidate. So huge question marks there. But he's run races in North Carolina, which means he's probably going to run a good race. He's not just a dude who's been in the background. He was a super surrogate for Donald Trump during this 2024 campaign. It seemed like the RNC had their head on their shoulders. So he could be a good candidate, and it would be a ever so slightly Republican-leaning state in a possibly Democratic-leaning environment. We don't know. With all that being said, if we know that the Republicans were going to run a good campaign and we don't know what the candidate quality is going to be, maybe he's a dud candidate, so he's a dud candidate with a good campaign. Maybe he's a good candidate with a good campaign. Quite possible. Roy Cooper, is going to be a good candidate and is going to run a good campaign, but the state is not on his side per se. This is going to be a highly national election. I said it could ever so slightly tilt R right now. That's where my instincts are, is that I have a hunch that Whatley might be good. And if Whatley is good, then I would tend to favor him. But maybe he's bad. I don't know. People yelled at me. We're at the period of time where people are screaming at each other online because of their toss-up, lean R, lean Ds. You can lean Ds if you catch my drift. Finally, long sigh. President Trump claimed that Jeffrey Epstein poached young women, including the now late Virginia Giuffre, from the Mar-a-Lago spa back when they used to be friendly. Trump stated that he confronted Epstein about the poaching and ultimately expelled him from the resort. Trump also addressed the possibility of pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, stating that it would be inappropriate for him to discuss it at this time. These were his exact words. Quote, should we do the hardcore history voice? Let's do the hardcore history voice. Even though this is not we usually do the hardcore history quote voice just for his truth social posts. We'll do it here. People that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-a-Lago. And people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain. This guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. He continued. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people. Whether it was a spa or not spa, I don't want him taking people. And he was fine. And then not long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here. End quote. This is obviously, it's a new thing about Epstein, so it's made the rounds. It does shed a little bit of light on some of the lore of the end of the friendship between Epstein and Trump. It does have some connection to Epstein's procurement of younger girls. Virginia Giuffre was somebody who said she worked in the Mar-a-Lago spa at the time that she met Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was the one that was allegedly doing the poaching. There was also a rumor that one of the girls that got hired by Epstein was the daughter of a member, and the daughter of a Mar-a-Lago member was part of this. So, who knows? One thing that I would encourage everybody to do is go read Michael Tracy's Substack. He was on the program last week, but he wrote a big piece about the first conviction of Jeffrey Epstein in Florida, one that has been talked quite a lot about, largely because there was a plea deal that was looked at as lenient. What Tracy suggests is that this was not necessarily because Epstein pulled strings or he belonged to intelligence, quote unquote, but mostly because the prosecutors, even according to their notes taken at the time, didn't believe they could get a conviction. And so a plea deal was the best that they could hope to tar him with something. And they wound up pinning all of their clout on the idea that he would have to register as a sex offender. So don't take my word for it. Read it yourself. That's it for the update. You can get 2 bonus episodes of this show each and every week if you go to takepoliticsseriously.com. And now, Mr. Dan Turrentine. It is my honor to welcome to the program Dan Turrentine. You can see him on the two-way platform, the morning meeting and the group chat. And he brings with him a wealth of experience in the world of democratic politics and so much more. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks so much for having me.
I just want to compliment you on the stuff that you've done on two-way. I've really found that content refreshing, and the way that I've kind of described friends to friends about it, especially the morning meeting, is that you and your co-host Sean Spicer and Mark Halperin actually talk like people who work in politics talk at the bar and not on television. And that is something that I find very, very, very exciting because it's rare.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, one, we all get along, which is in and of itself rare. And, I'll let you know, or in on a little story. I met Mark when I moved to New York City. I certainly knew who he was, but had never actually met him. And we literally met for coffee and just started kind of kibitzing over politics and how do we, look at certain events that were happening, certain people in the industry. And to your point, we just kind of kept chatting. Like we over text, we would, over phone calls, like we just kind of kept talking. And so when he asked me to join the show, you're right. It just kind of was a continuation of how we would talk to each other if we were on camera or not. And we do talk when we're not on air throughout the day. When news breaks, we'll all start texting each other and, give our takes and how should we think about this? And hey, did you see this piece is being reported here or this? You know, we all love it. And that at the end of the day, the three of us love politics. And even if we weren't being paid, we would follow it just, out of passion.
Well, what is that phenomenon? Because you've been in the middle of campaigns. You have, put your heart and soul into electing people. Why is there that, obviously partisan projection that happens when you're in front of a camera for so many people? And it is rare to just have a baseline practitioner's perspective that comes out in any kind of broadcasted medium when there's a microphone or a camera involved.
Yeah, I've always loved it. My parents followed current events. When I was a kid, every morning when I would come downstairs, my parents would read. I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. The New Haven Register and the New York Times were always on our table, and they were always reading it. And if you kind of wanted to talk to my parents before they finished coffee, Hey, did you see this story? Then they would put the paper down and kind of talk to you about it. And for me, I my real passion was the 2000 election. You're in Austin, Texas, George W. Bush and Al Gore. And I was riveted as that came down the home stretch. Obviously, then there was the recount, the back and forth.
Oh, Dan, more than that. I grew up in South Florida. My science teacher counted hanging Chad. So I was ground zero to that particular election. Yes.
Well, I was sitting at Deutsche Bank in New York City across from the World Trade Center, actually, and was like, my God, why am I not in this? Like, I love it. All I want to do is read about it. I would kind of finish my work and get home late at night and just watch CNN till 2, 3 in the morning because I wanted to know what was happening. And it was actually my parents who said, if you love this so much, why don't you go into it? And I was like, good point. And so I did, and just kind of worked my way up. To your point, you just kind of put on your hat and you start doing it. And I loved every single minute of it.
I do want to circle back. That was very, very great bio, but I want to circle back to the thrust of the question of why what you guys do is different than what generally happens on television. Is it just the kind of team sports of it and the concept that message matters? And if I'm going to be taking up any kind of media space, that I need to advance the message for my party? And why has that changed? Why are there more people who have actually done it like yourself that now just want to say, yeah, this was a good day. This was a bad day. I understand this in the way that, again, everybody talks about it behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think, well, there's two things. I think one, the media landscape has changed to where networks now will say, like, we're team red, we're team blue. So you have people who come on every day. It's the tribal nature of it. And look, there's an industrial complex side of this, which is a lot of people on television make money in other ways by kowtowing to the party line in both parties. And if you run afoul of that, your phone calls aren't returned, your clients aren't welcome into the room. What we at Two-Way and the morning meeting kind of tried to do was to be honest about this, right? As to your point, when I joined the show on September 30th, I was pretty comfortable saying everything I knew and heard was that Kamala Harris was trailing, that she was having trouble, that, it was a sticky 2 to 3 points in those swing states. She couldn't budge. I said very clearly, I thought she had a great debate in that against Trump, and the one they had, I wrote about this, in that she kind of, smacked Trump around. But the numbers didn't move because everything she said about Trump,
everyone already knew.
Yeah, it's baked into the cake. You're right. Yeah. He does say crazy things. He does espouse conspiracy theories. But we love what he did on the economy, or he's talking about doing on immigration. We don't know anything about you. You told us why he's bad, but you didn't tell us why you're good. And somebody passed a focus group on to me, and I was like, oh my. That makes sense. And I was willing to go on air and say, time out. There's all this euphoria that in the Democratic Party that she won, but she didn't, and that just kind of willingness to be honest. And look, I'll be honest though, Justin, I got a ton of calls from Democrats saying, what the blank? You're not helping us. You're hurting her. Why are you doing this? And I was like, look, guys, if tell me I'm wrong, show me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'll put the data out there, but simply saying be a team sport and say the sun rises in the west, I'm not cool with that.
You just hit on something that I have found fascinating coming from a media side, which does not have the same kind of expectations and responsibilities and friendships and relationships within a partisan structure, which is if you say something in a media setting that is good enough to be spread around and people watch it, which is great, right? That's what you want in a crowded landscape. If you're saying the thing that's not what everybody wants to be said, it's loud. I mean, I get it as a pundit where, for example, after that debate, my argument was Kamala had a bad debate because she didn't talk about herself. She didn't give us the new coat of paint on why this is the new Kamala, not the old Kamala that you didn't like. And I heard a ton of stuff, but also they weren't from people that we're in a similar partisan media a partisan work structure like you were. So I'd imagine that can be intense at times, especially during an election.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when you had, 80% of the Democratic Party thinking democracy was on the line.
Yep.
They were like, literally, you are, helping Hitler. I mean, I even had family members who said that. They were like,
Yeah.
how dare you? And, I just said, look, I can look at myself easier in the mirror if I'm just saying what I know or, believe to be the truth and where I learn about facts like polling and focus groups, I look at it. So, look, I think we all try to be honest. We all try to give our 2 cents. I think it is part of the secret sauce. I think, Mark Halperin is very comfortable saying where he thinks a Democrat or a Republican is doing well or not doing well. And I think as a result, the audience starts to trust you. If they don't always agree. I certainly hear from plenty of MAGA people who say, like, how dare you say A, B, C, or D, and I'll say, look, you loved me when I said Democrats stink on this, or Joe Biden should have resigned, probably at the end of 2023. But you hate it when I say, I don't believe all the Russia stuff. So, I mean, they love you, they hate you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, what you owe is to the audience, and that's what I think is really awesome about this moment in time in media. In the media world, is that while the audiences are shrinking, the connections between the audience that you have are intensifying, and that is, I think, a good thing when it comes to trust, at least for the people that are enjoyed. So let's find some more subjects that might get you hate from your friends. You worked in the world of fundraising in Democratic politics. If you were to rate the Democratic Party's current financial health for the midterms as great, moderate, or poor, what would you rate it?
Well, overall, I would say it's moderate because the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, they're two different entities. One oversees Senate races, one oversees House races. Those two committees are doing relatively well. They're basically on par, even though they're in the minority, with their colleagues in the majority. Where we're getting crushed is on the Democratic National Committee, the Republican National Committee. It's 6-1 in Republicans' favor. But Justin, what's even more concerning as a Democrat is the outside groups. Right now, you have kind of money that's raised officially by campaigns, by these federal committees, and then you have all this, like all these constellation of groups that can raise what's called soft money. It's unlimited. Some of it's not disclosed. Like, it is what it is, right? Those are the rules of the game now. We're getting just crushed. Some of it is our major institutional donors who support these groups are afraid of the Trump administration. Like, hey, if a group is too successful and their head kind of comes above water, the Trump administration may start poking around, and I don't need an audit. I don't need, negative press for my family or my companies. Some Democratic donors are just angry. Like, hey, I've given tens and in some instances over $100 million, you keep losing, you keep kind of explaining it away as these like phenomenons that like, oh, there's nothing to see here. But why, what are you doing to change? Why should I have confidence that this money will be well spent and is going to produce victory? And then some are just outright demoralized. They're like, generally speaking, forget the mechanics of running races. I don't agree with where the party continues to be on immigration or DEI or, even just Trump in general. Stop obsessing about him, or some want them to obsess more about him. So, that's why I say there are some good signs, but like there's a lot that's really, really worrying for the party.
It's been interesting to watch, especially to go to the outside groups. And this is going to get way in the weeds, but this is the reason why we have the word politics 3 times in the title. The fact that the Democratic Party seems to be more interested in litigating a fight with Future Forward, one of their massive outside groups that raised a ton of money, than what went wrong in even the X's and O's of the presidential campaign is crazy to me. Go to spend another $500,000 like they did for Call Her Daddy. Go to a suite and hash this out. Like, this is not a multi-month long thing. Throw some fists and figure it out. Like, either Future Forward's not going to get a ton of money or they are. Just Everybody air your dirty laundry and be done with it. The fact that this is still going on and it is taking precedent over other stuff seems crazy. And to your point, in a midterm, when you don't have the celebrity factor of a presidential race and you don't have the excitement that this is the turning point of all of global civilization and I need you to write this check right now, this is more of a bet on the institution of the Democratic Party and the diffuse candidates that you can push out. Like, there just seems to be a void of even basic leadership on that side that, you know, who knows where we're going to be in a year and change with the midterms. But if it's not great, you're going to look back at times like now and say, these were huge red flags.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the fact that it sounds like, obviously we'll see, subject to change here, that this DNC official kind of autopsy, as you say, is going to throw Future Forward under the bus. Look, Future Forward did not run the Kamala Harris campaign. Future Forward's job was to augment and help her campaign. And look, we can debate the Future Forward and all sorts of groups, right? Spending decisions, victory as 1,000 fathers and defeats a lonely orphan. But what's not being studied is, why did we get our butts kicked on voter registration? That used to be part of our bread and butter. Why is it that in Pennsylvania and in North Carolina and in Georgia, Republicans are on the march registering new voters? Some of them are our voters who are leaving the Democratic Party. Why is that, right? Some of them they're attracting new people. What about our communication strategy? Were we reaching our targeted voters or were we not, right? I've heard stories about, hey, they were knocking on the right doors in downtown Philadelphia. The problem was, as a for instance, the black man who opened the door said, I'm voting for Donald Trump, not for you, right? So, okay, we have a problem. Why did we lose certain voter segments? What about paid television versus, digital versus kind of other, as you say, podcasts and other things? Those were Harris decisions and even Joe Biden decisions. Like, I think you have to go back. How did he use 2023 or not to kind of get ahead of the curve? Those are the type of tactical and strategic choices that sound like nobody wants to be honest. Nobody wants to really look at it, because I think it would create a series of uncomfortable structural conversations about how is it that, Barack Obama in 2008, 2012 was considered this like savant. It was so advanced. We had so many kind of analytical leads and we were just superior in the blocking and tackling of campaign.
Yeah.
Trump, people want to just say, is this unique, kind of unicorn who does things that no one else can do. And the moment he leaves, our superiority will reemerge. Well, I don't believe that to be true. And it's a huge gamble to assume. Yeah. And so I think, to your point, if you're going to run a midterm race, we have North Carolina, Michigan, wouldn't you want to know these answers and try something new? Unfortunately, it appears that the easier route is just throw outside groups under the bus.
And part of it, again, I've never been inside the machine, but I have been a nerd about it for a while. And I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. It seems like the Democratic Party in certain ways is just sort of like a death by a million vendors. You have so many little factions inside of it. I've joked that the Democratic Party is what happens when a wedding is planned by just all the vendors. Like, you get 7 cakes. It's in 2 castles that requires 19 limousines, but nobody gets to see the bride and groom actually say their vows because it's too sprawling and too expensive. And I feel like the chickens are kind of coming home to roost now that there was a thundering failure and nobody really knows even what to unplug to replug it to figure out where to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, part of this is, and you said this earlier in the show, we don't have any leadership right now. I mean, really, the 2 leaders of the party would basically be Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. Both of those guys are not of the base, right? Nancy Pelosi, the base loved her. She had street cred with them. She had cared and fed them over decades. She had a lot of runway. Hakeem Jeffries is a former corporate lawyer out of New York City. Chuck Schumer is a Bill Clinton Democrat, right? He took out Alphonse D'Amato as being a real moderate. both of them need the base. They don't understand the changing nature of our base, and they're paralyzed. They hear from the moderates, my God, you can't follow some of what they're asking us to do. And they hear from the base that you have no balls, that you have no fight, you have no strategy, like we're getting rolled. All of this goes to kind of even Kamala Harris, who was a very indecisive candidate. She always has been. Like I know people who worked on her attorney general race, her 16 Senate race, her presidential race. Like she is who she is. We don't have, Barack Obama right now, if you look at surveys, is very low in rank of who do you trust to lead the Democratic Party within the Democratic Party.
Within the base, yeah.
Right. So I think to your point, what you have is a constellation of interest groups and consultants that have been, the same people have been doing these races now for 20 years, who all kind of scratch each other's back, who nobody wants to call out the other and say, hey, perhaps it's time we bring in new voices, new tactics, new vendors, new leaders within the party. And that it's frustrating. I don't know how Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries survive much longer. Like at some point you keep losing, the party's going to say, it's not your fault, but you got to go, right? I mean, I think it is their fault, but just like at some point we need new blood, new ideas, new strategies, new tactics.
One of the things that I like to do on the show is as we lead up to a big election is I have like 4 futures and I'll have all the guests, guess which one. And the one that wound up winning out was Democratic Civil War after 2024, because I thought this is going to, they're going to lose to Trump. This is going to break everybody's brains. And now everybody's going to start stabbing each other. And it's happened a little bit. And if anything, I feel the sugar rush of just say the opposite of what Trump said is safe enough that it's kind of stopped a lot of the stuff on the outside. But that being said, if this midterms doesn't go the way that they want, I don't even think it's civil war. It's Robespierre. It is reign of terror. And I think Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries would be at the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, look, I keep thinking at some point the party has got to move on from like the obsession about Donald Trump. If you look at kind of when we've been successful, it's because, 2018, the Pelosi was really adamant, don't go down every rabbit hole with him, focus on healthcare, focus on stuff. 2020, Joe Biden, like I'm not a huge Joe Biden fan, but if you go back to it, the 3 big issues in 2020 was getting out of COVID, rebuilding the economy, and ending the social justice kind of chaos, right? Essentially, if you looked at surveys, those are the top 3 issues. That's what Joe Biden focused on, right? Trump was like throwing, trying like stuff at the wall, trying to find a way to tear down Joe Biden. And then fast forward to 2024, like Trump, the inflation, the economy, immigration, like he had those things. We keep, as you say, it's a knee jerk. Trump says up, we say down. He says good, we say bad. And voters stop hearing us when all we do is scream how horrible he is, because the reality is voters don't see him as horrible on all the issues. They don't like, personally, voters are all over the place about kind of his personality and some of what he says. But if you look at what he does, and to me, the ultimate example is immigration. If we just had the common sense to say shutting the border is a good thing, right? No country needs to have an open border. And if you're a criminal, you either here or in your home country, you shouldn't be here. Most Americans would say, okay, if your next statement is, now, we're never going to deport 14 million people. It's insane to tear them out of this country because there's truly good people who you're like, oh my God, Bob's an illegal immigrant. He's been next to me for 20 years. Yeah. The country would hear us. And then Trump would look extreme because he's got, Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon pounding the table that everyone must go, and the Chamber of Commerce and the ag community and the construction community and the hospitality and all his friends in business saying dude, we can't do this. Then we've split the Republican Party. Yes. We look reasonable. And that's what, Bill Clinton, who I'm a huge fan of, would have done. Instead, we say, everything you're doing is wrong. Yeah. And the country
should reopen the border.
Yeah. And the country just says, okay, I'm not going to listen to anything else you have to say. And that to me, just makes me want to bang my head into a wall.
The thing that's mystified me and has driven me to yell on the show when it comes to Democratic strategy is that in 2022, partially the reason why Joe Biden wound up running, the number one issue, unless you listen to the Bidens, in that case, it was just the brilliance of, Biden world, but was Roe being overturned, was abortion. Yep. It was, it's a plus winner for Democratic politics and has been since before I was born. What is the post-Roe message from the Democratic Party? They don't have one, which to me is like malpractice. If you are looking for a thing that makes Republicans go humana, 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 I don't like it. They're in bad positions in big states that you need to grow your base in. When you have a Senate race in Texas, how does a Democratic candidate not have a post-Roe plan that isn't just don't wait for us to get 60 votes and then we'll put Roe back in charge, which is just not an actual plan at all whatsoever?
Oh, you're right. Look, Justin, the ultimate example of that, Donald Trump knew it was a losing hand. So he was squirming around. I'll be the best person for women. I'm not going to take away your birth control. I'm not going to take, he was on his back foot, throwing out one new message after the other. And to your point, that should have told us, hey, you need to stay on this, come up with a plan. Look, go across the board. We don't have any sort of, prospective set of plans on anything. I think this is a great question. What would Kamala Harris's first 100 days have been? Does anybody really know what she wanted to do? Because everybody could have told you what Donald Trump wanted to do. If we win the House back, look, this is going to be the big thing that the Republicans are going to say. All they want to do is impeach the guy. Yeah. Right. And there's part of our caucus that says, yes, you're right, which is insanity, right?
Yeah.
Right. Go find Al Capone's taxes and we're going to get him on something. Yes. And voters are like, I don't want that again. And so, Rahm and Chuck in 2006 had 6 for 06, the 6 things that we were going to do. And every candidate had it. Boom, 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 boom. I don't know. I don't know in 28, how our candidates, you have certain ones are kind of starting to road test. So to your point on abortion, I don't know what the game plan still is for that. Just simply saying, as you say, 60 votes is crazy. That's just, we're not going to get there. So talk about something more realistic.
And also the last time the Democrats had 60 votes, they didn't do it, which is the other problem, is that whenever you say like, oh no, just don't trust us. It's like, well, okay, they didn't do it before. And now the map is infinitely worse than it was before because the Democrats have punted on states where they used to have Senate seats. Last question here, and then I'll get you out. One of the big battlegrounds for the midterms, at least in terms of the balance of the House, is going to happen around where you are in New York City. I have said on the show that the Republicans, especially some of those House candidates in that area, are ready for Mamdani on a level that only few outside of, DSA hotspots in Brooklyn are, because they would love to run against him and not run for Trump with those purple areas. Do you agree with me, or is this more complicated?
No, 100%. Those seats in Long Island and kind of upstate New York a little bit. Look, it tells you everything you need to know that Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Kirsten Gillibrand, who's the chair of the DSCC, and our current governor, Hochul, none of them have endorsed Mamdani. Yeah. That right there tells you they all look at this with their unique politics and say, oi. And I think what's so fascinating about this race, I live in New York City here. I'm following this closely. I'm not a Mamdani fan. I have great respect for his strategy and tactics. I think there's a lot to be learned.
It is possibly my favorite campaign since Trump, 24. Yeah.
I just think his policies are wrong and somewhat insane. But Mamdani cannot get above 40% right now. Yeah. There's been 4 polls in which he's at between 36 and I think 41. So he had one where he was over. In a 4-way, that's probably going to be good enough. Mm-hmm. In a 2-way, he has a problem, certainly against Andrew Cuomo. He either trails or he's tied. Adams, he trails. The problem is those other 2 guys' votes don't go to Mamdani, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But even that should tell Democrats in a super blue city where Democrats are 66% of the electorate, your kind of shiny new object cannot break 40%. And so I think you're right. House members in this area are terrified. I think there's a similar dynamic that people are now starting to talk about if Kamala Harris runs for governor in California. I think the party hopes to pick up a few seats out there. Does she energize Republicans and others to kind of come out? I think what the hope is in New York is that after Labor Day, if Mondani is trailing a little bit, I think you're going to see Democrats say, I'm not getting involved. And the hope is that he would go down and then, they don't have to worry about it. If he wins, it's a nightmare because AOC and Bernie Sanders and others are going to point around the country and say, if you're a proud progressive, if you lean into this, there's a path to victory. And of course, what people are going to say is, he couldn't even break 50% in a blue city. I'm in a purple district. I will get slaughtered if I try to embrace this guy. So we'll see. I mean, it's a pickle for the party, no doubt about it.
I can't see anybody. I don't know the person on earth that could sit down Cuomo and Adams and make one of them, sit down, let alone Curtis Sliwa.
I think what I would keep an eye on, Justin, is the Black community, because Mondani struggled with them in the primary. If you look at the map, the neighborhood, the heavily Black neighborhoods with not just young people, but kind of what I'll call middle-aged families and older Black voters, he lost in the Democratic primary. Al Sharpton and others have not endorsed yet. And I think Mondani very smartly says he talks to Al Sharpton every day right now, right? I actually think part of his pilgrimage back to Africa, for people who don't know, Mondani got hit that on his college application, he said he was part Black. People looked at him and were like, really? I think one of the reasons he went back here was to kind of say, look, that's where my family is. This is where I'm from. Like kind of, that was a right-wing schmear. But if the Black community goes to Adams and says, look, we're just not with you. Like you've tried, we gave you all of August. Like we're going to give you a little bit of September. I think what's happening today here with the shooting, the horrible shooting in New York City brings police, public safety back into the focus. There's an opening for Adams. If the Black community says to Adams, we're out, and we are potentially going to kind of, I don't think they'll endorse Cuomo because they got to be a little careful here. But they basically throw their machines behind him. It's hard to see where Adams then gets his base of power, because it really is the Black community is what he's arguing to people. Like they can't be dislodged. And I think a lot of people think they might be able to be.
But Dan, what a bleak world for centrists when the hope, the Hail Mary is that Al Sharpton knifes the sitting Black mayor of New York, and then you throw all of your hopes and dreams behind Andrew Cuomo, who was disgraced not but like 5 minutes ago, and then ran one of the most listless campaigns anybody has ever seen at any level. You hope that maybe he's woken up, that he's taken enough of a nap, that now he wants to actually kind of run a campaign and not just walk around Manhattan and ask people to thank him because he had dared to slum it as a mayor.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play, right? I mean, that's basically where it is. You're right. It's tough. But again, the optimist kind of base, foundation is Mondani can't break 40%.
Yes.
So if his numbers don't move, it will give kind of some calcium to the spine to what is left of the power centers in the city to say, we've got a chance, But I mean, look, this was the Donald Trump phenomenon in 2016, which is all, Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and Chris Christie all said, no, you get out. Because Trump couldn't get above 40%, right? And they all said, if I ever got him one-on-one, right, there's 60% of our party doesn't want him. And they kept saying that, and, the rest is history. So, it's hard.
This is my thing about the 2020 campaign with Biden, is that people are like, look, that was a Stop Bernie Sanders effort that got Biden the thing. And it's not a conspiracy. It happened. The only thing that was odd about it is that it worked. Because this happens every time there's an outsider candidate. It's just usually the egos are so big that nobody can get on the same page.
Yeah, and speaking of the black vote, it was Jim Clyburn in South Carolina that rescued Joe Biden's fanny. I mean, he did. So we'll see.
All right. Dan Turrentine, two-way on the morning meeting and the group chat, both excellent programs. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks so much for having me.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. If you'd like to send me an email, it is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find, follow, and share video clips of the program. TikTok is Justin R. Young. Instagram is Justin R. Young. And you can find us on YouTube. See full video versions. You can see my face. You can see Dan Turrentine's face. You can see, mostly those two things. But still, if you want to throw it up on the big screen, you can do it. You want to throw it up on a small screen? Throw it up on any screen. Just go ahead and follow us. Follow and subscribe. Politics on YouTube. If you want to support us with a one-time donation, it is paypal.me/payjury, PAYJURY. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3 Cash, and you can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Again, that is Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. You can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Paying members get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. It's basically $3 a week. Guys, come on. Cup of coffee. Literally. 1 cup of coffee, 2 bonus episodes each and every week. If you would let me ride with you in the car and tell you about whatever you want to know about in politics for 2 separate rides per week, one on Monday, one on Thursday, well, and you buy me a coffee to do it, then we're done. It's a done deal. Head on over there. $99 for the entire year, by the way. That's 150 episodes of PX3 for under $100. But of course, it is only at our foundational tier, our Asimovian foundational tier, that you get your name read at the end of the show like these fine folks, including Sonny Black, L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes. Oh yeah, it's Adam, Neil, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Michael, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge B, Matthew, Matt, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Devon, Paul, a dog named Checkers, Gloria Young, my mother. Hi, Mom. Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Doc. Your name, this show. Only one way to do it. Only one way to do it. If you literally believe in this independent media thing, then that's the biggest way you can support us. Honestly, that's it. We have our donors club up front. If you really want to get, on that level, send me an email. We'll talk about it. But the foundational tier, I'm telling you, is what keeps the lights on in my house, right? It's what feeds the baby daughter. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but on our YouTube channel, Politics, your boy's been on television a lot. I've been on Sky News Arabia. I had a shout out Abu Dhabi. I was on Iraqi television, the Arabic world. Telling you. I think it's the hair. The Arabic world loves the hair. GB News in Great Britain, London calling, literally. And then our friend John Bachman show on Newsmax. 3 of those 4 were today. All right. And it wasn't a crazy news day. They just like having your boy on. All of that is now breaking into the fractured world of the mainstream media. What we have built here is now affecting the body populace. If you think that's a good thing, if you would like to see more of it, then supporting this show is the way that you can do it. So either getting on as a paid subscriber or coming on as a foundational member, or how about this? Telling a friend, saying, you want to know what? Go watch this show. It's on YouTube. Go listen to the show. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. It's on whatever, right? Follow the TikTok account. Follow the YouTube Shorts account. We're trying to get out there in every different way possible because we want to be a part of this conversation. You know, we've been doing a good job that we're proud of. We're happy to do it. You guys are always going to be the foundation here, but we've got an opportunity because there's no kings and no masters anymore. There are vanishingly few gatekeepers. We can rush the halls of power and we can bring our version of events. The kind of stuff that I really like what they're doing at Two-Way, where we actually just talk about politics and we don't throw bumper stickers at each other. We can do that. The financial support makes it possible. The recommended support continues to keep our momentum going. So thank you very much to everybody. Always and forever know that this does not happen unless I have you guys, and you, I guarantee you, will always have me. On Friday's show, we welcome Josh Jennings. We're going to take a little bit of a left-hand turn and talk about FEMA conspiracies from the 90s. It's a great chat. I think you guys are really, really, really going to dig it. We get into a lot of conspiracy stuff and the fractured nature of our partisan world. When we believe in conspiracies, when we look across the aisle and say, Jesus, can you believe that they believe in that? Good times. Till next time, this is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying, some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss. Three.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.